All right, let's dive right into this docket of historical cases. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to examine the timeless, epic battle between deceptive cunning and true wisdom. And we're drawing from this incredibly rich collection of classic Arabic fables. Now, these aren't just your standard old bedtime stories. They are actually brilliant psychological case studies wrapped up in really entertaining narratives. We're going to look at exactly how people try to use their intellect to, cheat the system, and how true wisdom eventually swoops in to balance the scales. So as we weigh the scales of justice today, we really got to ask ourselves, does deceit actually make someone smarter than society, the law, or even the divine? I mean, it's a question literally as old as humanity itself. We constantly see people who think they've found some super clever loophole in life. But as you'll see, there is a massive, absolutely crucial difference between being a clever trickster and being a genuinely wise human being. Here's our docket for today. We've got the illusion of cleverness, profiles in deception, the cost of corruption, the power of true wisdom, cunning versus wisdom, and finally, we'll wrap up with the final ethical verdict. Okay, starting off with Section 1, the illusion of cleverness. This is when deceit masquerades as intellect. The common thread among all the tricksters we're going to examine today is this overwhelming, almost unbelievable sense of arrogance. They fundamentally believe they are the absolute smartest people in the room. So to really understand them, we have to define what a fraudster actually is. A true fraudster is someone totally blinded by their own supposed brilliance. Whether we're talking about ancient times or guys operating in today's modern world, they use this twisted logic to just bypass the rules entirely. They don't just break the law, they genuinely convince themselves that they're morally superior while they're doing it. Moving right along to Section 2, Profiles and Deception. Let's look at the pomegranate thief and the phony official.
Let's call our first two suspects to the stand. We've got a thief who literally thinks he's a saint and a politician who thinks he's a savior, and both of these guys vastly underestimate the intelligence of the everyday people around them. So there's this famous scholar, Al-Asma'i, who once caught a man stealing a pomegranate, only to watch him immediately turn around and give it to a poor, starving person. When Al-Asma'i confronted him, the thief presented some seriously twisted math. He argued, okay, stealing is -1 sin, but giving charity earns +10 good deeds. Subtract the 1 from the 10, and boom, a net profit of 9 good deeds. But Al-Asma'i immediately dismantled this ridiculous logic. He explained that true justice dictates God is pure and only accepts what is pure. You simply cannot trade stolen goods for divine favor.
Al-Asma'i gives us this incredibly vivid, kind of gross, but perfect analogy. He says trying to do a good deed with stolen property is like washing an impure garment with urine. It doesn't clean the garment at all, right? It just ruins it further. The moral lesson here is simple but profound. Good intentions absolutely do not purify corrupt actions. The means matter just as much as the ends. Now, let's look at how arrogance leads directly to, well, totally hilarious humiliation. We have this phony official visiting a remote village just for a PR stunt. The villagers tell him they have two major problems. First, their health clinic has 0 doctors. So, to look super powerful, the official whips out his phone, loudly pretends to call his headquarters, and orders a doctor immediately. He proudly turns to the villagers and asks, okay, what's the second problem? And the simple villager just looks at him and says, well, the second problem is we actually have 0 cell phone network coverage out here, so who in the world were you just talking to? The official's sheer arrogance walked him right into his own trap. It's a great reminder. Never underestimate the simple, devastating logic of everyday people. Let's move to Section 3, the cost of corruption, colluding with justice. Okay, the crimes escalate here from foolishness and ego to complete systemic ruin as we meet our next suspect, Qasim the thief. In this fable, some villagers catch a thief stealing their cows in the dead of night. They drag him right before the town judge. When the judge asks the thief his name, the guy drops this coded phrase. He says, "My name is Qasim al-Nas," which translates to divider of the half. The corrupt judge instantly gets the secret code. He completely turns on the innocent villagers, threatens to throw them in jail for accusing a quote-unquote noble man, and just sets the thief free. And sure enough, later on, the judge and the thief split those stolen cows 50-50. Let's actually review the evidence of our fraudsters so far and map out their motives and impacts. The pomegranate thief is driven by false piety, right, which corrupts basic moral logic. The phony official is driven by pure ego, which totally destroys public trust. But Qasim the thief and his judge, they are driven by unadulterated greed, and their impact is absolutely the worst of all. The the complete destruction of systemic justice. When the very people meant to uphold the law are the ones secretly breaking it, the whole society crumbles. As a really brief recess before we meet a genuinely good judge, let this tragic, kind of darkly humorous sheep remind us about the absolute dangers of meddling. In this little side fable, a sick horse is given 3 days to stand up or the vet is going to put it down. So a nosy sheep spends 3 entire days motivating the horse. And guess what? Finally, the horse stands. The farmer is so thrilled that he throws a massive celebratory feast and slaughters the sheep to feed his guests. No way, right? But the lesson is super clear. Beware of trying to solve problems that aren't yours without really thinking through the unintended consequences. All right, Section 4, the power of true wisdom. Enter the Kula judge. Now let's bring in our absolute gold standard for true justice, the Kula judge. He handles the case of a wife who is absolutely desperate for a divorce, known as Kula, because her husband is just constantly insulting her. He's got a really sharp tongue. But instead of just instantly swinging the gavel and breaking up a family, the judge uses this brilliant 3-step psychological procedure. He tells her, okay, I'll grant the divorce, but on one condition. You must bake me a cake, but you have to gather every single ingredient from the homes of your neighbors. You literally cannot use anything from your own pantry. Sounds like a totally bizarre request, right? But it is actually a masterclass in emotional intelligence. So the crucial point is what happens next. When she knocks on the first neighbor's door just asking for flour, she learns that that neighbor's husband actually beats her and gambles all her money away. When she asks the next neighbor for eggs, she learns that husband is a serial cheater. Suddenly, the woman realizes her own husband, while super annoying and verbally harsh, is actually quite decent by comparison. She marches back to the judge and completely cancels the divorce. By forcing her to witness real, true misery, her own complaints completely shrink. The judge knew that comparing misfortunes can be a profound balm for a troubled heart. Section 5, Cunning versus Wisdom. It's a tale of 2 judges. If I put on my robes as a wise judge assessing these 2 legal minds, the verdict is just fascinating. Look at the corrupt judge. He uses his sharp intellect to decode a bribe, exploit the vulnerable, and enrich himself. That is mere cunning, and it destroys. Now, contrast that with the Kamala judge. He uses his intellect to create a carefully controlled environment where a frustrated woman can gain perspective, inspire empathy, and ultimately save her entire family. That is true wisdom. It constructs, it heals, and it enlightens.
Finally, Section 6, the final ethical verdict, rulings from the court of morality.
As your presiding judge in today's explainer, it is time to issue our final rulings based on these timeless stories. These are the simple moral takeaways you should really carry with you. First, as Al-Azmai taught us, good intentions absolutely do not fix corrupt actions. The means have to be pure. Second, just like the phony official, arrogance and fake prestige will eventually expose you, for sure. Third, mind your boundaries. Seriously, remember the poor sheep. And finally, as the brilliant hula judge showed us, genuine intelligence is rooted in integrity and empathy, never in manipulation. Understanding others' pain is quite often the very quickest path to appreciating your own blessings. I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Look around your world today, your workplaces, your institutions. Ask yourself, who is secretly acting as Qasim al-Nasser right now? Who is quietly dividing the stolen cows in the shadows while pretending to be an honorable judge in the light? True wisdom is learning to spot the difference between the loud mask of cunning and the quiet, solid strength of genuine integrity. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and always keep questioning what you see.